And so we kind of went into it being, okay, this is going to be, you're never going to out kick and punch the John Wicks of the world. You're never going to have like a cooler oneer than like Extraction or something. You know what I mean? And so it was like, what are we going to do? And so we kind of came up with this Nate Fu, we called it. It was like flailing survival combat, or you know what I mean? And it was just like the way that we would fight if we had to fight a bunch of like, ex-military bad guys or whatever.
Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. In this episode, a man who cannot feel pain gains vigilante status in director Dan Berk and Robert Olsen's dark action comedy, Novocaine. The film tells the story of Nathan Caine, a man born with the rare condition where he is physically incapable of feeling pain. When the girl of his dreams is kidnapped by gun-wielding bank robbers, he turns his rare condition into an unexpected advantage in the fight to rescue her. In addition to Novocaine, Berk and Olsen's other directorial credits include the feature films Significant Other, Villains, The Stakelander, and Body. Following a screening of the film at the DGA Theater in Los Angeles, Berk and Olsen spoke with director Drew Hancock about filming Novocaine. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, guys. Thanks for coming tonight.
Yeah, really. I mean, give a hand for the fantastic job. Seriously, the movie is unbelievable. And I have to start off by commending you for, I think this might be the first beta male action movie. And as a beta male myself, I feel very seen right now. So thank you very much. So this is your fifth feature, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I'm gonna list them: Body, Stakelander, Villains, Significant Other. Now this.
Ding ding, you did it, man.
I was waiting. I didn't think you were gonna get it.
I'm 45. I did one movie. Are you guys like in your 60s? Like seriously, like what's going on here?
I feel that old.
Yeah.
No, I mean, listen, we. Let's see, how long ago was it when we made Body? It was 12 or 10 years ago, 11 years ago at this point. We met at NYU as randomly assigned freshman year roommates. And, we became best friends before we started writing or trying to direct or anything. And when we did start writing together, we had some small degree of success. We sold a script to some producers and we really wanted to direct it, but every time we brought up the idea of directing it, we were told to fuck ourselves, because we had there's just this weird conundrum where you can't direct a feature until you've directed a feature, especially when you're young and clearly not trustworthy. So we just went out and endeavored to figure out a way around that, and we raised $50,000 from 100 people, and
really calling our grandparents and everything, and
directed a movie in 11 overnights.
Yeah, I mean, it was just all about trying to find. We found this this big house that we had access to through a friend of a friend, and we literally wrote a movie to take place in that location. So it was one of those things where. You look at what's available to you and you try to duct tape it together into a movie. But then once you do that, once you have the first one, we were able, we got into slam dance and, so we got to go to that. And then from there, you're at slam dance and our publicist got us all these meetings by being yeah, they have a movie and some dance. And cause it's at the same time as Sundance. And so we got a bunch of interviews that probably wouldn't have interviewed us if they knew which festival we were in. But yeah, and then we just kind of went from there. And then the second movie was a director for hire thing where it was a sequel to a Jim Mickle movie called Stakeland. And so that was a different kind of thing because we had a little bit, we had a big budget. There was $1 million budget. And so we were, but it was a post-apocalyptic vampire movie. So it still felt less than $50,000. But that one wasn't, yeah, we had more money, but it wasn't our script. And you kind of have to do an impersonation of the original. So it wasn't until Villains, our third movie, that we actually, we kind of feel like that's our first real movie, if you will, just because that's the one where we actually had the money to make it. And it was our original script.
Yeah. And if you guys haven't seen Significant Other, I've told you guys many times, it's a fantastic movie. Don't do any research. Just watch it. I think it's wonderful. You finish Significant Other. Then what happens? Like, what's the path that leads to Novocaine?
Well, we were, it's a winding road, but we had gotten we sold a pitch to Amblin, and we were working on this movie with them, and it never happened. It just got stuck in development hell. But while it was there, they paired us up with Safe House, which is Tori Tonal and Joby Harold's company, and they were great, and we just really hit it off with them. And so flash forward a couple years or whatever, and they had Novocaine, and they sent it our way for consideration, but we were still among a bunch of other candidates. We had to go in and pitch our take and everything. But yeah, we got the script, and it was like this idea that it just really jumped off the page to us, and we just thought it was a really sticky, kind of easily marketable idea. But then the script itself was like kind of, more serious than this movie is. It was like kind of dead serious. There wasn't a lot of jokes. And we were like, kind of like, well, I feel like this should be a little bit more of an action comedy. And so we kind of pitched them on that, and we got to go in and do, this rewrite. And then while we're doing the rewrite, Dan and I, since there's two of us, we always try to pick an actor when we're writing, so that we're writing in the same voice. And we were watching The Boys at the time, and we were like, oh, this guy is 100% Jack Quaid, and so we kind of wrote it in his voice, never thinking we were actually going to get him. And then one thing led to another, and we were able to convince the rest of the producing team that that he was the guy, and we went out and he said yes, and that like never happens, and so and then we, they were trying to they were financing for it, and they were going to do, go to AFM and do like foreign pre-sales and all that good stuff. And then, but they showed the package to the majors like that weekend before, and Paramount just stepped up and bought the world, and, rest is history.
Yeah, that's amazing. No, finish.
Please clap.
Yeah. So you're not credited writers on this, but you did a pass on that. So you want to talk about like your adapting to your...
No, we don't want to talk about it.
No? Okay. Next question.
No, yeah. I mean, we are not credited writers in this. As I'm sure most people in this room are aware of, there was an arbitration process that there's very little visibility into, and we unfortunately didn't win on that front, but that's okay. We're at peace with the situation. And the original writer Lars deserves a ton of credit for the kernel of the concept of a man who can't feel pain, being thrust into an action movie was very much in that original draft. So in no way does he not deserve credit. Yeah. But yeah, I mean the process of rewriting was. Again, I mean, I think it was just the producers had a lot of faith in the take that we had, and that was really comforting and really validating, even at that early stage, that they were, let us get really weird and funny with it, just because this concept is so audacious that, we just feel like it would have kind of fallen flat if it were taken totally seriously.
Yeah, it was really fun to do that rewrite too. Like when we were writing the torture scene, it was just funny because while we were writing the torture scene, we were cracking each other up. And then when we were on set shooting it, it was the funniest scene we'd ever shot. And the whole crew was, we were blowing takes because people were just cracking up. And, that if the people who are paid to not laugh and ruin a take are laughing, that an audience who's there to laugh is going to have a good time. And then to see it finally in that third stage in the first test screening, and to see that scene and the whole place just kind of rolling, it was pretty special. Yeah.
Yeah, and the one thing I really appreciate, as soon as I saw the movie, I'm a comedy snob. I come from the comedy world. I think you guys handled the comedy perfectly, because there's a 80s action movie versus 90s action movie. There's a thing that happened with the Rush Hour movies where they became more slapsticky, where 80s action movies were a little more grounded. I felt like it's very easy to go for that slapsticky, and this premise, I think, is kind of, you would expect it to go that direction, but I think that you guys handled the comedy in a very grounded approach. I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to, it would have been very easy to go slapstick more. We wanted to give a little bit of that, like in the rundown, in the booby trapped house. And, for us, it was just sort of like hewing close to the kind of emotional graph of like, we wanted you to have as much fun as you're going to have in this movie right before it's like the biggest gut punch, with when he arrives to the auto body shop and Nate realizes that Sherry was in on it. But yeah, I think, for us, action movies of that era, of that golden age of late 80s, early 90s were very much like a spiritual North Star tonally, because those are movies like, like we always mention, like Die Hard and Lethal Weapon, like those are movies that are objectively funny, but you would never call them a straight comedy. Those are action movies. They deliver on spectacle, but they manage to be really, really funny and make you laugh constantly. And that was something that we were like really trying to straddle the whole time here tonally.
Yeah, Beverly Hills Cop too, well, also too, but the first one
as well.
But like Eddie Murphy, who is a comedic actor, Jack Quaid, who is, does comedy, but he's playing it more grounded. Were you guys, when you were writing, I should say, like rewriting the script and in pre-production, are you watching action movies? Where are you drawing inspiration from?
Yeah. I mean, we were watching a lot of those older films. Midnight Run was one that like we really fell in love with during that process. Then of course the whole Lethal Weapon series, especially Lethal Weapon 2, and just being in South Africa while watching that was funny.
A lot of diplomatic immunity. A lot of diplomatic immunity.
Between us. And then and Die Hard, the whole Die Hard franchise, really, like or at least the first three. I think like Dan was saying, there's just something about those movies where they are very, very funny, but that stops just short of being, a full comedy, like it's always, there's still stakes there. There are scenes where somebody's wife or daughter or, your dad is being threatened. It's like there's real stakes to it. It's not just like, I think that, like you're saying, Rush Hour, I think is more of like a comedy, or like 21 Jump Street or something. I love those movies or whatever, but it just feels like everything was one or the other recently, where it was either something, that was an action, like a total action comedy, or it's an action movie that's like very serious and like, you stole my, daughter and I'm going to come and kill you. And then the end of the movie is like, I killed you, and so we just wanted to, kind of go back to the roots of these films that you could watch and you left feeling like good, and it feels like a lot of action movie stuff is revengey, and it's also, a lot of times it's like protagonists that you don't get to know because they have a secret identity. You know what I mean? It's like they're a kindergarten teacher, but they're really like a former CIA agent. And like, whenever you're doing that, you kind of have to put some distance between the audience and the character, and it's fun. It's just a different thing. It's like a different effect. You're sitting there going, ooh, who is this person? What are they really, or whatever, as opposed to using that real estate early on in the film to really get to know your character, so that when they get, thrown into the later, you feel it all the more,
We also did watch a lot of more contemporary action for the fight stuff to figure out. It was mostly an exercise in figuring out what we weren't. Of course, we'd already seen them, but we rewatched all the John Wicks and we were like, okay, we're definitely not John Wick. Like, we're not going to move the camera this way because the camera is aligned with that character's confidence and faculties in combat, and our character had none. So we found some references that we felt were valuable, like Upgrade was one that we always talk about, which is a great movie. And because that movie has like a shtick with the combat where like his face is sort of doing something different than his body because the chip is, controlling him and whatnot. And so like that first fight scene in the kitchen when he's like grabbing plates and being like, oh shit, sorry, that felt like, oh, okay, that's kind of what we, and of course they do this sort of like gyroscopic thing with the, following the camera's locked to a gyroscope somewhere on the actor's head. But We weren't going to go that crazy, but there was something to the way that those fight scenes were choreographed and photographed that felt really relevant for us.
Yeah, there was like a humor to them, and I think like we watched some like, Drunken Master, like some old Jackie Chan stuff, like just and obviously it was tough to find the exact thing because like Dan said, we were going through and we were watching like The Raid, for instance, being like, I love this movie, but no, like this is not what the guy can do in hours, so it was really hard to find stuff that was like this, just because you're so used to having a protagonist that knows how to fight and is like kicking 10 guys' asses and stuff. And so, and yet that's what drew us to the project too, is that we've been wanting to make an action. All of our other movies are horrors and thrillers and, or sci-fis but action's like maybe our favorite genre. It's just that it's really, really hard to make an action movie early on in your career because they're usually more expensive. And so we wanted to do one, but we wanted to find one that felt a little bit left to center, like where there was something off. We didn't want to just do, a regular programmer, again, as much as we love them. We wanted to do something where we could use a little bit more of our, dark comedy background and even our horror background, because obviously there's a lot of, gore in this movie. And so, having a little bit of experience with that was nice.
Yeah. You mentioned that you'd written it with Jack in mind. So I mean, what happened? Talk through the steps in actually getting the person that you wrote it for?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, like with all these things, they always want you to go out to these like gigantic actors that are not going to do the movie. You know what I mean? Like everybody wants the sure thing. They want somebody who's been in a $50 to $100 million action movie that made a bunch of money. And it's just like, you wind up having to do that and, go out to these people who are going to say no, but that, it's, I guess it's worth taking your swing or whatever. But the whole time we were like, Jack Quaid is right there. Like the way that you do this is you have a little foresight, like you're not going to get the A1 action star to come be in your, relatively smaller budget action movie, like they're just not going to do it. And so
also something that we experienced with casting was like an age thing too, because a lot of like the people who are headlining action movies these days are too old to play this role, like Nate doesn't work if he's like 58,
Can't be like Jason Statham.
No, totally. I mean, like, and a lot of these, and that's something that I think we're all grappling with is a lot of the stars that studios are saying are bankable are getting older and have aged out of some roles. And there, of course, we have a few people I think that we're, that we're nurturing and a new class of movie star, but there's not really enough, and so we need to be like forging new movie stars, and Jack certainly is one in our mind. He just needs, a few more opportunities like this, and then he'll be on that list as well.
And Amber, how did Amber get it? I think she's just, I've been a fan of her since Prey.
Oh yeah, I mean, so we were, that's funny. You should ask sitting in this room. Bobby and I think we're sitting like right there or something. We got to see Prey at the DGA Theater, and so we were one of some of the few people who saw it on the big screen. And we left, and we were like, "Who was that actor?" She was amazing, and that was like, I don't know what, 2 years before we started casting this. But the second that we, attached to this, we were like, okay, this role is definitely for Amber. There was a short list of people that would be perfect for it, and Amber was at the top. And it was much like the Jack submission, which again, this never happens, but we sent the script and like 36 hours later, we heard that she was in, like no conditions. She didn't even need to have a meeting because we just heard she was so nice from everybody. Our casting director said she was like the sweetest person in the world, and she is the sweetest person in the world. So it was such a frictionless process. Honestly, like the casting across the board on this was nothing like our other movies as far as like how hard it is to kind of get the pieces in place that like all gelled so well and had amazing chemistry.
Yeah, their chemistry is like, it's so good because they are, I think, off screen, they're so similar because they're two of the sweetest, kindest, most gracious performers you'll ever meet, but then on screen, their energies are so different. Jack, especially in this role, is, playing this kind of shy, sheltered guy, and Amber just has this this like magnetism and energy to her. She's so fearless in her kind of just presence on screen, and they have two very different looks, but the camera loves both of them, and it's just so it was really fun just working on that and getting their kind of opposing energies to yin and yang in the right ways.
Yeah, I would love to talk through two specific scenes that kind of, to me, encapsulate what the movie is. The first one, the diner scene, which I love that you guys really take the time to let that scene breathe, because I feel like a lot of movies that I watch now, you can feel the filmmaker like behind the camera going like, come on. So it establishes an energy. You feel comfortable with these characters. You let them feel their relationship feels a little more real and nuanced and lived in. So, I mean, like talk through that diner scene, and like, did you do rehearsals? How long did it take to shoot that? And had you rehearsed it before you shot it? Like, yeah.
Yeah, we did rehearse it. That was really that really was, I think, the first scene that we really rehearsed, because the other scenes before it were so quick, that like, maybe we went through them once or twice, but that was the first one that we really sat there and worked on it and just tried to get their body languages right and all these things. And as you're doing it, you can always find the lines that aren't really working, and you tweak them and everything. And, it's funny that you say that we allow them to live in it for so long, because this, it's probably twice as long in the first edit of the movie. And we were just like, we cannot be here for 8.5 minutes. Like, we have to chill this out a bit. And so when I watch it, it feels fast because I knew what it used to be or whatever. But no, I think that scene is just like, again, it's a really important and pivotal one, because the whole beginning of the movie, if you hadn't seen any of the marketing or whatever, you're kind of like, what is he doing? Why is he like this? And that's the first time you're really, hearing about his condition and the struggles that he's had up to this point and everything. And you're also just seeing him, you've seen him on his own all morning and everything. And you're finally getting to see him talking to another person, never mind like, the woman that he's had this crush on for a long time. And so to like kind of see his heart flutter and to see her go, especially when you go back and kind of watch it again after knowing what the twist is, I think Amber makes some really interesting choices throughout both the diner scene and the bar scene, where you can kind of see her shifting from like the act to actually being interested in this person, and kind of fascinated by him and realizing like how sweet he is. I think we talked a lot about that with her and just the back and forth we had with her and her character, and how like she'd been through all of these kind of really hard times, and that there was something so like naive and pure about like this guy who is so, in a way has this like sheltered childlike like purity to him, and like, and whereas everybody else in her life is, jaded, or in her brother's case, like kind of evil, and then here's this person who is a completely sincere human being who's kind. And I think she probably thought that didn't exist in the world. And it's nice to see what she does with the character over those couple of scenes.
But yeah, they both, it was a big day that they were really anxious for, because, again, the full is probably like an 11-page scene or something, or maybe it's 10.
It was irresponsible.
But it was gigantic. So we did what we could on the day, and they both came totally prepared. They didn't like blow a single take, but I think we triple covered that just to try to help them out as much as we could with like doing a 2-shot and then like 2 depths of a single on each side. And so we didn't have to run it like, 25 times, but they did run it quite a few times. But that was definitely a full day.
I think the best part was that Jack had been doing this crazy like cut to get in shape for the scene where he has to take his shirt off and show the tattoos. And so we had finished that. And so now he was finally like getting to like when he was eating the pie, like he really ate it all. Like he was like no spit bucket, like just like he just kept eating it and was like, this is the best thing in the world. So that like wasn't even acting.
Yeah. He said it was like his favorite production day on anything he's ever done because he got to eat sugar for the first time in like 4 months.
Oh, that's incredible. Did you ever get pushback? I mean, there's no, I mean, this is an action movie. The first action scene doesn't take place until 25 minutes into the movie, which I fucking love. I think that's amazing. But like, there's a world where the studio sees the cut, goes, oh my God, what do we have? And then they take the kitchen scene, they put it at the beginning, and then there's a freeze frame where it's like, You're probably wondering why I got here.
We were like taking bets on like when we were going to get the voiceover suggestion first, and we never did. And I mean, it really is, I have to say, it really not just like, shilling for the studio here. Like Paramount did have total faith in this version of the movie from the jump. Like we all knew the script was, we didn't get to the bank robbery until page 35 on the script. And then in post, we cut 10 minutes to get it to 25 because we knew before anyone had to tell us that there was a problem if we weren't hitting action by the break into 2. But yeah, they never asked us to do that. I mean, it was sort of when you
got the general like,
tighten it up or whatever. But we did. I mean, we got it to like the heist starts at like 24:40 or something. So, I think we like structurally that is where that should happen in the script. You shouldn't be hitting the bank robbery at like 19 minutes. You'd be like, I don't understand that marker. This isn't making any sense. I think when you watch the movie, for the most part, you realize that it does work because it's such a freight train once the action starts. I think if you hit that heist and then there was another 10 minutes of lull and then you got another action scene, you'd maybe feel like, okay, we got to figure this out. Let's put the end at the beginning and like Netflix this thing. But like but nobody ever felt that. And Paramount never said a word about that. They were into that idea. And that was something that, we've talked about this a ton while we've been doing press, like the long first act thing or the regular first act, but the long duration before you get to like the candy coating of your movie, like the genre element is something that is also a throwback to those 80s and 90s movies that, and for a million reasons, it's streaming. It's being worried that you're going to navigate to a different thing. It's TikTok eating Hollywood's lunch. It's all of these various things that make studios feel like you got to be getting to that heist at 12 minutes instead of 25. But we feel like that's not playing to the tops of audiences' intelligence, and like people can sit for 25 minutes and get to know characters so that you actually care once the action movie kicks off.
I think even the people who think the beginning of the movie is slow, like subconsciously find value in it, because like I have seen a couple people who said like, oh, it's a little slow in the beginning, but once it gets going, like it's awesome and there's so much like heart and you really care about the characters and everything. You're like, well, why'd you care about the characters? But like, like it's one of those things where I think even if it is a little long for some people, it makes the rest of it, work all the more. Because again, this is a kind of movie where if you don't buy him, like, having his life changed by this person because of one night they spent together, then the rest of the movie doesn't make sense. Because you're like, why is he like doing all of this for this person that, he just met? So like if the bank robbery happened at minute 10 or minute 12 or something, you wouldn't have had enough time to set up, because you need to set up him on his own and what his life looks like before she gets there, so that you can feel the contrast once she is there. And you need all that before it gets going to really invest. Again, I think there's like a cheaper version of this movie, not like financially, because I don't know if that's possible, but just where it's all just about, all you care about is the concept and just getting to it as quickly as you can and having as much silly fun with it as you want. But we just, we really wanted there to be, again, like stakes and characters that you care about. And, it's hard to work any kind of sincerity into an action movie that's just like go going, where you never got to meet anybody or get to know them,
Yeah. And for the record, I watched Patriot Games recently. That first act is like 50 minutes long. Not joking.
Oh, like to roll.
I've already screwed this up. There's like 5 minutes left, and I haven't even talked about the action. I'm sorry. I love character and first acts, and so can you briefly talk about the kitchen scene, which is when it really, I mean, that's when he's using a superpower, and you're seeing it, and obviously the putting in the grease and it's fantastic. So, do you guys previs? Do you shot list?
Well, I mean, we didn't do anything before this because this was the first action movie we made, and so that was like something that was, going into it. I think the Paramount really wanted to surround us with experience, and so a lot of the other department heads on this movie were very, very experienced and 20 plus years older than us and stuff. And our stunt coordinator Stanimir Stamatov was obviously he's done this a bunch of times, and it was really interesting because you go into the process and you can do all the research that you want, but going out there and shooting a fight scene is always going to be its own beast. And yet we felt so comfortable because of the process of how it works, where you do get this previs of the fight, and you can where they are going into this, they're going into a kitchen set where they made it entirely of cardboard boxes, and they're acting it all out for you, and you can actually watch the edit of it and have a back and forth with them about like, this is a little too involved, but like this camera move over here that you guys are pitching, like that's really cool, but we're going to do this and that. And it's just so nice because it's not like we were handed cameras and it was just like, do action. You had support. You had people who had done it before. And it's funny because like you don't have that on a horror movie. You don't have like a jump scare coordinator. You know what I mean? Like you have to just like figure it out, and so I think something that we were anxious about, going into this and into this genre that we hadn't worked in before, but we felt so comfortable because they could handle the sort of technical side of it, and we could learn the technical side of it from them, but then still use our imaginations to sort of figure out how to photograph the fight scene, what the beats of the fight are, because that kind of stuff I think we're good at. Like we were little boys playing with action figures, and if you look at our the films that we made with our buddies in high school, even though we didn't know each other yet, they're like exactly that. They're all like Lord of the Rings ripoffs, and there's all these like silly little fight scenes. So we'd been wanting to do stuff like this forever. And yeah, I think that kitchen scene was the first one where, we spent a lot of time trying to think of like, okay, what is the style of fighting in this? We knew we wanted it to be messy. That's why we brought on Stanimir, because he was like kind of a brawler style fight coordinator. And so he would like, he just had like a kind of just barroom vibe to him. It was not karate. And so we kind of went into it being, okay, this is going to be, where you're never going to out kick and punch the John Wicks of the world. You're never going to have like a cooler oneer than like Extraction or something. You know what I mean? And so it was like, what are we going to do? And so we kind of came up with this Nate Fu, we called it. It was like flailing survival combat, or you know what I mean? And it was just like the way that we would fight if we had to fight a bunch of like, ex-military bad guys or whatever. We'd be like throwing lettuce and chicken and stuff like that. And so
we worked for a while too to like dial in the like, the looseness of the handheld that we were going to operate with, because we didn't want it to be like too like, green grassy, like, tight, shaky stuff. Like we wanted it to feel like the camera operator like knew what was going on, like it wasn't like they were finding it and missing beats, but it like you could overshoot it by like an inch, and then come back, so that it felt like the camera was, like I was saying earlier, it's like in John Wick, you're on these like steady dolly shots because it's like John Wick knows exactly what the to do. But in this movie, it's like Nate has no idea what to do. So the camera operator kind of needs to like sort of follow that a little bit, so there's a philosophy behind that coverage design. And also the other thing about that fight was that it's maybe our favorite fight in the movie. I don't know. It's definitely, to me, feels like the one that'll like,
well, it's like the first
remembered.
one.
Yeah, it's like the first one where you get the concept. Yeah,
the bank heist is like, it's not funny. It's like there's just like cops being shot and people are screaming. There's not like jokes in that.
Yeah, it's just like heat.
But then the kitchen fight like lets you know like it's going to be okay to laugh in this movie.
Yeah, but the thing that also, in addition to our favorite, also made it the most annoying was the set resets, the art resets because of the flour. Like that bag of flour exploded over the entire set. And then every time we had to clear set and wait for 20 minutes while the like 25 art people went in with like mops and rags and dusted everything
you're
off.
Trashing the whole kitchen.
In addition to all of the other
shelf
shit being
and
thrown
everything, but like I was always amazed at how quickly they were able to just like cat in the hat.
Like a professional art team is like, because that's really daunting to think about when you're going in. You're like, well, but what about the reset? Like, do we need to like change the whole coverage plan because you can't reset flour? And they're like, just wait. Yeah. And they did it. And it was amazing. We were able to do a whole bunch of takes, which we needed to.
Well, I have like 30 more questions. But one of my favorite compliments that I got from companions was someone said, it's a really fun movie. And she said, people forget that you can just have fun with movies. And this movie was so much fun.
Thanks, dude.
So thank you for making it. And thank
you so much, Drew. Thanks
thank
everybody for coming.
On Sunday night.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. The Director's Cut is available wherever you listen to podcasts. And please share, subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America.